So I've always been partial to bright lights and bells. And my name is Adrienne, and I am a gaming addict. I'm a victim of childhood trauma. Mom was a narcissistic abuser. I'm the second of four children and grew up as the oldest. And my aunt reminded me to be the success of my family as I was leaving for college. I went to college and graduate school, and I finished early. There may be a trigger. I'll put out a trigger warning, and I'll try to keep my language very as generic as I can. But I love pinball, beer, and cigarettes. Those were my things. I did the New York Cross. This is in college and graduate school. I did the New York Times crossword puzzles in ink. Did I mention I love pinball? I would have played more, but I was a poor college student and I loved puzzles. And somehow I managed to finish my master's thesis and meet the love of my life, actually almost in that order. So that was kind of cool. Electronic games started showing up, when I was in graduate school. I entered data on punch cards, right? So, there's not a lot of, it's not sexy to play punch cards. You just throw them and drop them and they're out of order and it's over. But electronic games started showing up. I was transitioning from college and graduate school into life. So there's this little voice in the back of my head that warned me off an electronic game. But that was okay because I always felt uncoordinated and I felt less than able to do that. So I moved on. I've had over 10 concussions in my life, and the body never forgets. It plays out later. So I'll put a pin in that and come back to it. My husband almost died from Crohn's complications in 1983. I almost died from toxic shock in 1989. And my daughter, my firstborn, died 4 days before her 7th birthday, September 1st, 1991. And that was the activation date of my obsession. Truly the activation. Desktop PCs were just becoming popular, and they came with pre-installed games to help folks get comfortable using a mouse. I'm sure it was well-intentioned. When my husband wasn't gaming while we were mourning, and when I wasn't taking care of my youngest, now oldest child, I was practicing with that mouse. Time goes on, I'm working, I'm having two more children, I'm holding elected office. I held that for 12 years and I worked full time. I'm such a geek. I love electronics and I love practicing using the keyboard on my BlackBerry. I remember I had made dinner and gotten everybody at the table. I suddenly hear my oldest say, "Mom, put down the crackberry and come to the table. It's dinner." And I'm like, oh, didn't, I heard it. It blew by. I mean, I put it down, but it blew by. And I just kept moving. The second activation date was 9/11, right around 9/11. Two things happened. The World Trade Centers, the people in Pennsylvania, the Pentagon, all of that happened. Concurrently with that, there was a wrongful death lawsuit that we were starting to wind down on, class action suit around my daughter's death. I was smoking cigarettes like a chimney. And in order to stop doing that, I turned to playing, one of those pre-installed games on my computer. I ended up leaving that job because they needed to downsize after 9/11 anyway, because all the money sucked out of the Midwest and went to New York where it needed to go. But that was hard. And then I was working part-time. I moved out of my chosen field and was working retail, which of course gave me more time to practice with keyboards and mice and those things, like a rat through a maze. And then the third activation date was August and September of 2008, when we moved back to Ohio and I needed to take over not only being the oldest child in my family, but the parent to my parents. I was moving my oldest son from Indiana to Boston. My middle son was decompensating and we had to place him in a therapeutic day school. And I functioned through all of this, working 2 jobs, having car accidents that I wasn't, and a work accident where I had concussions. And people like to hit me. There must be a sign on me somewhere. But I wasn't responsible actually for any of that. I lost track of time. The work accident that gave me post-concussion syndrome was like 2015. And I don't really remember a lot of what happened because I was told that it would help if I would use these computer things therapeutically. My doctors, get your eyes working again, do this and do that and the other, figure out how to do, division because you can multiply just fine. All these little things. I figured, oh, the doctor said it was fine, and then it was fine until it wasn't. And I didn't come out of that until it just got worse. It was chronic. I mean, it was funny, haha, for a long time, and oh yeah, and I can put it down. But I always kept coming back, and I always kept picking it back up. And I always had the latest and greatest whatever I needed. And I always made the excuse, oh, I need it for work, or it'll help me stay in touch better. The things I said. What got to me was I was staying up late, all the things, all the things. I was doing all the things. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I was sitting in unnatural positions. I put on weight because I wasn't moving. I ruined my hands. I had a shoulder fixed. I had to learn how to walk after my accident. And I'm sure the gaming didn't help that I wasn't sleeping, learning how to walk again after my accident. In the meantime, I'm burying one brother, 2 brothers, a mother, and a father. I go back and forth a little bit in that time because I'm kind of fuzzy. But what I do remember is that I lied. I thought I had integrity. I lied. I didn't steal money, but I used money. I used our money. Now, my husband knew I was using money, but we were always making money. So he said, it's a hobby. But anyway, it got so bad. I finally found GAA with CGAA. It was COVID and everything was shut down, which made everything worse. But it didn't really even matter because I didn't go out anymore anyway. I was agoraphobic. Because all I wanted to do was game. I left my son and daughter-in-law's wedding reception in 2017. I legitimately didn't feel good. However, I was relieved that I could go and game and not feel well. you know, but I used to lie and say, oh, I don't feel well. Oh, I have a headache, all those things to not be involved with people. I would get snappish. I would be mean. I didn't recognize myself anymore. One day before COVID, I had my last job before I went out on disability. And I remember working so hard to get this job, so hard. I finally get this job. I'm so excited. I'm so happy. And this thought flits through my head. I wonder how little I have to do so I can game. And just like the damn crackberry comment that my son made, that thought went right by because my addict brain said, just ignore that voice. I almost drove off a bridge. I couldn't figure it out. One night, I didn't know who I was. I couldn't think straight. Fortunately, I got home and I got help, but I never identified the addiction. Now we're in 2021. It's gotten to the point where my husband is like, we need to do something. Let's look for something. There's got to be something. And so went to Gamblers Anonymous. Not my people, not even close to my people. And I found a meeting. And I sat there and I remember coming out of the meeting and I said to my husband, I don't think these people are right. They're all young, they're all college. What would they have in common with me? And he was actually really so kind and gentle about it. He goes, it's possible that if I just sat there and listened, I might hear something. Oh, so I came back and I sat and I listened and I went, oh my word, these are my people. You are my people. I had not turned my camera on. I had not done any of that. And then I fell and broke my back on April 15th of 2021. I was angry. I was pissed. And I gained in anger every day at a rate of about $270 a day for 6 weeks. May 31st, my brain clicked back. Something clicked. I don't know what did. I decided to say, well, gift of desperation. I decided to stop digging. June 1st was my first day in recovery, 2021. And it's been not all wine and roses. It took me a long time to kind of deprogram myself. But I'll tell you what, as soon as I started actually recovering, I recognized that some of the symptoms that I thought were concussion, post-concussion, were gaming withdrawal symptoms, were symptoms of gaming addiction. And I went, oh, this is interesting. And the next interesting thing was, as I started to recover from gaming addiction, my mental health started to improve and I was able to get the help I needed. So the onion started to peel back. I thought, irreparably walked away from my faith. Kid died. I was able to find my higher power. Religion of my birth we're still negotiating, but it's there too now. And it wasn't. I was very fortunate. I found someone and kind of followed her around, stalked her until she said she'd sponsor me. I really am so grateful that she hung in there with me. I went to every meeting I could go to when I first came. At the time, it was like 2 meetings a day, right? Morning and evening. As we were growing, there were more meetings being added. There were the meditation meetings. There was the odd reading meeting or something meeting. And I would go to every one of them, literally, because I needed to be there that badly. And I needed to learn how to be a person again. I needed to learn how to be willing to keep working when I didn't want to work. I had to be willing to listen to myself when that small voice goes, you need to turn off the TV. I needed to learn how to recognize that there's a problem. We talk about things we need to do to keep ourselves from relapsing. And one of the things that I do is I keep a written list of things to do in case the urge to game is blocking all other things out, right? I have 3 copies. They're pretty similar. I have one that I keep here in my office. I have one in the family room and one at my bedstand. It does happen. Even now, I'll, pick up the list and look at it and go, it's like a security thing. I'll pick up the list, I'll look at it and go, okay. And I'll do my step 10 work and, be done for the night. I meditate. I stay in contact with people, even when I don't want to. And here's the thing. If there's a meeting and I look at it and I go, nah, I don't want to go to a meeting. It's when I need to go to the meeting. If I look at the schedule and say, well, I'm going out with family or I'm going out of town, I'll make sure I find a different meeting to get to if I have to miss a meeting. I still go to a meeting every day. I did the 90 and 90, I wanted to say. I did it like 3 times. Addiction is about obsession, so I kind of let it go that way for a while. Where I am now in my recovery is that I do service. I just stepped down from the GSC. I stepped down as the women's group rep, but I was there for a year. I lead meetings, I have sponsees, I take emergency calls from people who are not yet here in the fellowship, but reach out. This is the hardest, best thing, best gift that I've been able to give myself. I can only speak for myself. I am so grateful for every lesson that I've learned. I learn them the hard way sometimes. Sometimes I listen and get it. I've learned how to forgive and be forgiven. I've learned how to have conversations with people again. I've learned how to laugh. I accept life on life's terms. And I'm really, really, really grateful. My family has forgiven me. I'm very fortunate. I can enjoy my grandchildren, which there was always a possibility that that could have gone the other way. I've been able to work really, really hard and with a clear head and recovery gave me that. And so I'm Adrienne and I'm a grateful gaming addict. Thanks.